The story begins with a mobile screen showing the final chapter of a web novel titled 3 Ways to Survive in a Ruined World. The ending reads, "There are 3 ways to survive in a ruined world. I've forgotten them. But one thing's for sure, you who read this will survive." The reader frowns. Seriously? That's it? That's how it ends. We shift to a regular office worker in a suit seated in a subway train. He looks tired but calm. "This is Kim Dokja. I'm Dokja," he says in voiceover. "That's how I introduce myself to others, but I'm always misunderstood." The name Dokja holds multiple meanings. A child without siblings. A reader. One who walks alone. "My father gave me that name hoping I'd grow up strong and independent," he continues. "Thanks to that, I've lived as a lonely, ordinary man." Kim Dokja rides the subway every evening, his only real hobby being reading web novels during his commute. But today's ride feels different. Suddenly, a beautiful woman approaches and greets him. She's Yusanga from the HR department. Kim Dokja is surprised and flustered. He nervously returns the greeting, trying to remain calm. Her pleasant scent causes him to blush slightly. "I didn't expect to run into our company's superstar, Yusanga, on the subway," he thinks. Normally, top executives line up to drive her home, managers from HR and finance included. Turns out her bicycle was stolen, and she's taking the subway today. Dokja is shy, internally noting how beautiful she is, but also firmly believing they live in 2 very different worlds. Still, he reminds us this train ride is unusual for another reason. Curious, Yusanga glances at the screen of Dokja's phone, trying to see what he's reading. She's also a fan of web novels. Embarrassed, Dokja tries to hide the title. He's currently reading The World After the End by Sing-Shong. But that's not the story that really matters today. Today marks the final update of a web novel Kim Dokja has been reading religiously for the past 10 years, 3 Ways to Survive in a Ruined World. He simply calls it Ruined World Survival. To most people, the end of a novel isn't anything special. But for Kim Dokja, this was different. He'd started reading it in his 3rd year of middle school. He read it when he was bullied, when he failed entrance exams, even while serving on the front lines through FIBA military service. And now as a contract worker. Through every phase of life, one thing remained constant: a ruined world survival. Over the years, the novel's readership faded. The first chapter had 1,200 views. By chapter 10, that number had dropped to 20. By chapter 50, it fell to just 12. Eventually, Dokja became the only reader. He had always believed it was a good story and even tried promoting it. But people mocked him, called him an attention seeker. Kim Dokja had never been someone who worked particularly hard. He coasted through life, keeping his head down. But Yusanga was different. She was diligent, capable, the type of person you'd expect to be the protagonist of a novel. Watching her, Dokja wondered, what if my life's genre changed from realism to fantasy? Could I become the protagonist then? As that thought passed through his mind, his phone buzzed. A new message had arrived. It was from the author of Ruined World Survival. "Thank you," the message read. Dokja froze. "Is this the author?" The reply came quickly. "Thanks to you, I managed to finish the story and even enter it in a competition." A conversation followed between the author and Dokja. The author explained that the competition would begin with today's epilogue and that he wanted to send Dokja a gift via email. He emphasized that the story was only possible because Dokja had continued reading it all this time. Moments later, an email arrived in Dokja's inbox. Attached was the entire manuscript of Ruined World Survival. The message thanked him for his support and mentioned that the novel would go into paid service starting at 7 p.m. Dokja glanced at the time. It was already 6:55 p.m. Curious, he searched for the novel online, but it was gone. Deleted. The author had taken it down in preparation for the paid release. But as a token of gratitude, Dokja now had the full story free and complete. Just then, the train shuddered violently. The lights cut out and the brakes screamed as the train lurched forward. Panic erupted. Passengers cried out, some shouting, "Is it a terrorist attack?" Chaos filled the subway car. Through the dust and confusion, Dokja caught a glimpse of something with a twisted smile. A creature barely visible in the settling rubble. The clock struck 7 p.m. The paid service had begun. A strange red energy began to gather midair inside the train. Dokja stared at it as a glowing notification appeared before his eyes. Free service of Planet No. 8612 has now ended. Commencing main scenario. At that very moment, Kim Dokja's life genre changed, from realism to something far more terrifying. Someone in the crowd pointed toward the floating creature and muttered, "It's an imp!" Hearing that word, a chill ran down Kim Dokja's spine. A memory surfaced, the very first line of the novel Ruined World Survival. The train was halted. Lights were out. Darkness and fear loomed inside the carriage. But Dokja could think of only one thing, the opening of the novel he had read every day for 10 years. It didn't make sense, but the resemblance was undeniable. He remembered the exact description, a pair of small horns wrapped in a bundle of hay. The strange, fluffy creature floated in mid-air, too grotesque to be called a fairy, too nefarious to be an angel, and too harmless to be a devil. Before them hovered a glowing ball of purple energy. The imp, the same creature that brought catastrophe to the world within the novel. The passengers stared, confused and terrified. The imp opened its mouth, speaking in a strange, unrecognizable language. Some people chuckled, assuming it was some kind of augmented reality show. But no one recognized it, no one except Dokja. He knew this imp. It was the source of every disaster in Ruined World Survival. And now it was here. The imp switched to Korean. "Can you hear me? Ugh. This Korean patch didn't work properly," it muttered. A rude man scoffed, shouting that he had an audition to get to. The imp tilted its head. "Strange. The research must have been wrong. Most of you were supposed to accept the scenario quietly once the paid service started at 7 p.m. It asked the crowd to sit down and listen. Annoyed murmurs spread through the passengers. But Dokja wasn't confused anymore. Everything matched. Every word. Every event. This was the story. The story he alone had read for the past decade. He thought, "I have to stop this." But how? More passengers began yelling, treating it all like a joke. The imp's eyes narrowed. His voice turned cold. "Be quiet." The air grew tense. Without warning, the imp raised a finger and the head of the man who had shouted earlier exploded. Blood sprayed across the carriage. Screams followed instantly. With a twisted grin, the imp spoke calmly. "This isn't a movie, or a dream, or even the reality you thought you knew." One by one, more heads exploded as he continued speaking, his voice never rising, his expression eerily composed. Dokja's last trace of doubt vanished. This wasn't a coincidence. The imp continued. "You've lived wonderful lives until now, eating, sleeping, breathing. But the good times are over. Nothing in this world is free forever." Fear spread like wildfire. Then an arrogant man in a designer suit stood up. It was Manager Han from Dokja's financial department. "Is it money you want?" he asked confidently. "I'll give you whatever you want. Unlimited funds." The imp barely glanced at the stack of bills Han held out. "Money," it said, amused. With a flick of its fingers, the cash burst into flames. "To me, your money is just processed plant fiber. Worthless in higher dimensions." Its voice dropped. "Try something like that again, and it'll be the last thing you do." The imp's smile widened. "It's time for you to earn your survival." The imp's horns began to grow, twisting upward as his entire body started glowing with a strange energy. Suddenly, a translucent notification appeared before everyone's eyes. Channel hashtag by 7623 has opened. The constellations will enter. A wave of confusion swept through the train as more glowing blue windows popped up in front of every passenger. The next message read, "The main scenario has arrived." Kim Dokja's eyes narrowed as the next notification unfolded before him. Main scenario number 1, proof of value. Objective, kill 1 or more living beings. Type, main. Difficulty, F. Time limit, 30 minutes. Reward, 300 coins. Penalty for failure, death. People gasped as they read the horrifying objective. Murmurs turned to panic. No one could believe what they were seeing. The imp floated high above them, chuckling with amusement. "Good luck to all," he said with a wicked smile. "Let's keep things entertaining. The constellations will be watching." Then, just like that, the imp vanished, leaving behind only fear, chaos, and the cold glow of the countdown timer. The scenario had begun.